like to call to order the Board of Education meeting. If everyone would stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. All right, please let the record show we have all board members present. And we need a motion to adopt the agenda, including the supplemental personnel report that's been updated in our green folder.
I'll make a motion, we accept the agenda, including the supplemental personnel report.
I have a motion by Jeff and a second by Tracy. All in favor? 6-0. And we have approval of bills. Jeff, were you able to look them over?
Yes, I did. I would make a motion, we accept the bills for the month.
Okay. Second. We have a motion by Jeff and a second by Barbara. All in favor? And next up, we have a special presentation. We have Laura Woolfolk. We would like to congratulate her. She is our district's 2016 Master Teacher nominee for this year. She began teaching at Dodge City High School in 1994. She teaches all levels of English, has served as the debate coach, taught psychology. She's been the cheerleading coach, the SAD sponsor, the K's sponsor, and a travel leader. She also has taught Project Nightwing, the high school's night school program, and Read 180 for the after-school program. Among her many other accomplishments and recognitions, Laura is the 2015 Wolf Teaching Excellence Award from Kansas University. Congratulations, Laura, and good luck. If you'd meet me up front.
Congratulations.
I always get comments about, oh, I saw your picture in the paper, and it's never about me. It's always about Congratulations again, Laura.
Congratulations.
All right, we have Stuco reports. Yvonne, I don't see him. Oh, there he is.
Back there.
All right, he's hiding. All right, you're up.
Not absent this time, I promise. So I hope you all had a great day, and I'd just like to say I am sincerely, sorry for not showing up the past 2 times. I need to be responsible, and this needs to be a priority like everything else I do in my life. So I hope you can forgive me for that. And then moving on, our last meeting was today, and we discussed Spirit Days and Winter Homecoming. And we pretty much just talked about the days the entirety of the time. And so what we came up with is Inside Out Monday, 80s Tuesday, and that's in honor of Footloose, which is this week, by the way, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Hope you guys go. And then Wednesday, which is Animal Day, and Thursday is something that's actually really new. We decided to let the student body pick a day, so we posted it on Twitter as a Twitter poll, and so we'll see what we get from that, and that'll determine, that way the student body has a say more directly as to what they want. And then Friday is Blue Day, which is also something new, and that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Yvonne.
Thank you, Yvonne.
And we forgive you.
I'm still thinking about it.
Okay, next up we have Dodge City Middle School. We have standing in is Jasmine Alvarado, the vice president.
Good afternoon. My name is Jasmine Alvarado, and the things I have to report is our IT students worked very hard on January 27th, and spent an entire day in the auditorium working on their Google Cardboard projects, and I was one of them. We had fun, and we really did work on a lot of glitches that came out with our Google Cardboards because we made them ourselves, so we had to tweak them a bit. And last Wednesday, DCMS, our math teachers, received the Challenge Award. And we received this award because last year's 8th graders closed the gap in our math test scores. We recognize all the math teachers for helping us get this award. On this day, we also had Joe Cole come talk to us about goals and achieving them. He told us how even though life may get hard sometimes, we need to push through it and work our hardest. He showed us a video about grit. Also, during this assembly, some of the high school science teachers came to talk to us about STEM night. They brought 2 examples of what is to be shown that evening, and they had 2 volunteers go up and do experiments, and the students really enjoyed it. So thank you for listening. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank
Great
you.
job, Jasmine.
All right, for Comanche Middle School, don't seem, okay. So we'll just look forward to it next time. All right, moving on then, we have recognition of visitors. Persons may present ideas or concerns regarding USD 443 schools. No action will be taken by the board at this meeting. Personalities and behavior of employees are not to be presented during this period, but are to be reported to the employee's immediate supervisor. The president shall determine the amount of time to be spent for citizen participation. Please address the podium now if you would like to. No one, will move right on ahead. Next up, we have the consent agenda. That includes the approval of personnel, including the supplemental personnel report, the approval of minutes for the January 25th Board of Education meeting, the approval of use of district vehicle by the class of 1976, approval of Grammy Foundation grant for Dodge City High School, and the approval of the HVAC design services for Sunnyside.
Before you take action on that, I might mention that in your folders this evening, we put the resume of the person recommended as our next Executive Director of Human Resources. Jeff and Ryan were involved in interviews this last week, and this was the choice of the group, and feel very pleased to be able to recommend on the consent agenda tonight that you approve Ramona Buckner, Dr. Ramona Buckner, as Executive Director of Human Resources for us beginning in July.
I was happy to be a part of the process, and I'm extremely excited. I believe she's going to be a real asset. A lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, and so I think she'll really serve us well and serve our school district well.
No, it was a good process, and I especially enjoyed the 2 representatives from the Human Resources Office that were on the interview committee. And interviews, one of the things that was said was there's nothing really to fix, and I think that's a great testimony to you and your staff, and in the job that you've done for us. But later, Dave, but we wish you well as you finish out the year. But I am very excited about Ramona Buckner. I think she will be a great asset to the district.
Great.
I make a motion.
Second.
Everybody on once. We're all like,
Got where we were at.
All right, we'll say Tammy made that motion and Ryan second. All in favor? All right, new business, curriculum and instruction.
A couple months ago, board member.
If I could interrupt, we have the Comanche, Carlos Huadron, is that right? Did I get it right? All right. If you'd like to go ahead and give your report.
You're up.
You're up.
Good evening. Amy's at Scholars Bowl today at Hayes, so I'm the replacement for Vice President for Comanche Middle School. We had our Valentine's dance last Friday. Students either brought $2 or two canned foods to help the Humane Society and to give it to the Salvation Army. Sorry, it's because I came running in. This week we'll be selling Valentine roses, and these silk roses will be delivered on the day before Valentine's Day. And we are preparing a carnival for April, so that's gonna be big for Comanche because we've never had one. And this month is a Random Acts Kindness Month at Comanche Middle School because we had, his name was Dave, right, Kristen? Dave, this speaker, came to us talking about how we should help others, and we should be grateful to others and to our principals and teachers. And in May, we might have just an 8th grade dance where all the 8th graders can just hang out for the last day of Comanche Middle School. Thank you. Do you guys have any questions?
You did a good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right.
John Maple is the Assistant Director of the Southwest Kansas Area Cooperative Districts for Special Education. A couple of months ago, we were asked some questions about services and programs provided in our school district for students with dyslexia. So that's one of John's areas of responsibility. I offered him the opportunity to come and discuss that with you this evening. So, John, all yours.
Mr. Cunningham, Board of Education, appreciate the chance to share with you tonight a little bit of information about the topic of dyslexia. It's one of those topics that's become a big topic of discussion at the state and federal level concerning education and special education specifically. A lot of the information that I have in the PowerPoint, and I think you got a copy of that, a lot of the general information comes from the Kansas State Department of Education. You probably have a lot of different ideas about what dyslexia is, and people hear a lot of different things, whether you're watching the news or reading the newspaper or whatever the case may be. But basically, dyslexia is a specific learning disability that is characterized by difficulties with accurate and/or fluent word recognition and decoding abilities. Most of the time, you'll find that students who have dyslexia and may or may not be diagnosed with dyslexia, but basically they have some trouble with reading, writing, and spelling. And that sounds kind of simple, but we have lots of kids who deal with those kind of difficulties. It's actually, dyslexia itself is neurobiological in origin. So sometimes the diagnosis of dyslexia will come from a medical doctor or even some type of mental health professional will sometimes do that. In actuality, and I think I've got this in another slide, we don't have very many students that I'm aware of that have the actual diagnosis of dyslexia. And so we tend not to look at that specifically, but we look at their very specific needs that each student has. One of the things I want to emphasize is that, I'm sorry, you're doing a really good job. I forgot to pay attention to what we're doing there.
You've got a clicker there if you want to use it.
Oh, okay.
Trigger on the back,
Back here?
back
Okay.
and forward, or back and forth on the front, either way.
Okay, well, we're in the right place, so she's done well keeping up. I apologize, I get started going and forget what I'm doing sometimes. I've got it in front of me, but I wasn't paying attention to what was up here. Anyway, one of the things I want to emphasize is that it's not because a student doesn't have the intelligence to do schoolwork, and it's not because they have a lack of desire to learn, but it really is, it's a disability, and it's something that they have to be helped with, they have to learn to cope with, and they can actually be taught in a way that there's even some information out there that their brains even change with the right type of interventions and help, that the actual part of the brain that is dysfunctional there does change. Because of their intelligence, they're often very talented in other areas that don't require strong language. Some examples of that is Steven Spielberg and Albert Einstein are at least two examples, and I could have read a whole list of people that you would recognize that have dyslexia but have been very successful in life. So that's not always a problem. The statistics that you'll see here is an estimate. We don't always know how many students actually have dyslexia as such, because not every student who has dyslexia actually gets diagnosed with dyslexia. On the slide here, I forgot to include one part of the statistic there at the top. We're talking about, in that 8 to 10%, we're talking about students who are actually on IEPs because of their learning disabilities. There's two things that go along with being on an IEP. Basically, one prong of it is you have a disability, and the second prong is, do you need special education in order to work with that disability? And so sometimes we have students who have disabilities that are not on IEPs because they have been able to overcome that in some other way. And so you see that the percentage of kids who may have dyslexia is much larger than the percentage of kids who have a learning disability. So there are students who deal with dyslexia but don't have to be on an IEP to get through school. They've been able to function due to things that have happened at a very early age, either with their parents or in school. And the truth is that our reading curriculum and instruction in general has become so much better that a lot of students are able to get intervention through just what we do on an everyday basis in our reading instruction and curriculum. These are some things that most educators now, especially at the elementary level, could tell you about reading instruction. And students with dyslexia do benefit from this, direct, explicit instruction in these 5 different areas of special education. And in Dodge City schools, what I've observed over time is that their reading curriculum and instruction has evolved to the point that they are doing some things that are very, very good for students even with dyslexia. And the truth is that we have students who have all kinds of difficulties with reading. And it's for various different reasons. Obviously in Dodge City schools, we not only see those students who struggle because of dyslexia and other reading disabilities, but students who have language issues because English is a second language for them. And so this type of instruction is really good for all students, that they get this direct and explicit, and we concentrate on these 5 areas of reading. In my opinion, Dodge City Schools has really evolved their curriculum and instruction that includes a lot of kids, and some students who have dyslexia will benefit from that in a way that they don't need anything else to help them get through it. Then there's those students who, the general curriculum and instruction, they don't respond to that as well as some students do. And so they may need something else. Student improvement teams often get together and talk about students that are struggling in different areas, and a student who may have dyslexia, whether it's been diagnosed or not. They'll talk about what kinds of things that they have problems with in their reading. And it could be any of those 5 areas, and it could be very specific within those 5 areas. And so they'll talk about what kinds of interventions can be done. And even in the general classroom, they will sometimes do interventions at what we would call tiered levels. The first tier being the general instruction. Second tier being a more specific type of intervention that they do within the curriculum, within the general classroom, but in smaller groups and maybe more honed in on a specific area. And then some students need even a tiered 3 intervention, which becomes even a smaller group, a more focused type of intervention, and eventually could lead to a special education referral. If students don't respond to that type of intervention, then a student improvement team may make a referral for special education evaluation. And if the student does qualify, then basically what that means is that a special education teacher takes on that student also and works together with the regular education teacher to provide even more intensive interventions, perhaps even sometimes more one-on-one types of things, but they can really hone in on what that student's specific needs are. And they may use some of the same interventions that have already been used and try to spend a little more time with the student than maybe can be done in a regular classroom. Because basically when a student qualifies for special education, it's because what can be done in the regular classroom is not enough for that student. So we just make it more intensive. And they may find other types of interventions that would be helpful also. But the main thing is that we focus on that student's specific needs. So whether they have the label of dyslexia or the diagnosis of dyslexia, we look at what specific areas that they really need to hone in on and work on those areas. And that's what our special education teachers try to do. And it can go all levels of interventions even. But the truth is that they continue to need a lot of the general instruction that they can continue to get within the regular classroom, along with those interventions that the special education teacher provides. We do sometimes see students who need even a more intense involvement. If you do any reading about dyslexia and what kinds of things can be done for dyslexia, you might come across something called the Orton-Gillingham method. And it's a method that was actually researched in the 1930s, but they continue to recommend that for teachers for students who have dyslexia. In our cooperative, we have a system called the Barton Reading System that is the same method, the same type of method as the Orton-Gillingham. It's the training and stuff is a little bit different for this system. And we've seen some students that have used it. I talked to a parent, it's been 2 or 3 years ago now that visited with me, and they were actually using the Barton Reading System at home because they didn't want their student pulled out of class to get this more intense instruction, because it's pretty time consuming. It's very repetitive. In fact, I was discussing with somebody today, and one of the descriptions was just simply, it's just pretty boring to do. It's just something you just have to go over and over and over again. But the students that I'm aware of that we've used this with has been secondary students who continued to struggle with reading, and one particular student that I don't know the student myself, but I've heard the story from one of the other assistant directors that the student started doing this and really hated doing it, but stuck with it. And toward the end of that, she started saying, I see a difference. I see how this works now, and I can tell a difference even in my classwork because I'm reading better. So, those are more extreme cases usually, but we do have students who go through that type of system also. Again, the main thing is to figure out, what their specific needs are. There's many different ways to deal with students who have dyslexia. I'm glad to be able to say that in Dodge City schools, because of the emphasis they put on their reading curriculum and instruction, that lots of times students are able to get through it with just the type of instruction that they get in the general classroom. And they don't need anything beyond that. Sometimes a student who has dyslexia needs some accommodations to go along with that, but they still can function within that regular education instruction. A simple accommodation might be one, just giving them more time, because it takes them longer to process what they're reading. So they may need more time, or maybe even some shorter types of assignments. Not that they're easier, not that they don't show you that they still understand what you're trying to teach the same as the other kids, but they might need something shortened and a little more time to work on it. So sometimes they just need those accommodations, but when they don't respond to those, then we have tiered interventions that can be done within the regular classroom. And then you go beyond that. If they don't respond to that, then we're talking about special education and the types of things that we can do in special education. We've really worked hard here, I believe, on trying to keep kids in the regular classroom, even when they get into special education, we're still trying to keep them in the regular education classroom because they do benefit from that instruction that's going on there, even if they need something extra to go along with that. So we try to find those times that we can pull them out and do some extra kinds of things and still involve them in the regular classroom. I think I said this earlier, we don't really have very many students that I'm aware of that have an actual diagnosis of dyslexia. Doesn't mean they don't have it or they don't have some of the same kinds of issues that children with dyslexia deal with, but what we try to do is emphasize what is that student's needs, and then what do we have, what can we do that will help with those very specific types of needs that those students have. So the keys to that basically are the things that we do at Dodge City Schools. A preventative approach is to have that very solid, good, direct, explicit instruction, a good curriculum that sets students up to be able to learn from a very early age. And that's one of the things that is emphasized, is that students need that from a very early age. So we really try to catch them when they start school, kindergarten. From what I can tell, the Dodge City teachers get a lot of support. They've got a lot of training to work with that, a lot of resources. And that includes our special education teachers. Dodge City and the co-op together have provided a lot of different resources to help even special education teachers to work within that curriculum and help students who have a lot of areas that they need help in that way. And then, of course, the intense intervention that can be seen through our tiered intervention and also through special education as it goes beyond that. And basically that's what we do. And I've been really pleased myself with how special education and regular education works together. And I think that'll continue as the years go. Questions I can answer?
I mean, who makes a diagnosis? I mean, how does a child go about getting diagnosed? Does a medical doctor do it, or psychologist?
The ones that we've seen have been either a doctor or psychologist, psychiatrist type of thing. It comes from those areas. We don't try to diagnose that ourselves. We just look at the specific disability that a student has and the specific needs that they have. And it's just like anything else. Every kid's different. You can have dyslexia, and this kid needs this, but this one needs this. So we try to look at it more of what are the needs the student has specifically within those reading areas that they're having trouble with, and just work with it from that, as opposed to saying, oh, this kid has dyslexia, here's what we do, because it's not the same for everybody.
I assume there's specific.
Well, again, it's more that they have a reading disability, whether it's dyslexia or not. And so, yeah, there are things we look for, but if you look at the 5 areas of reading that we talked about, some students, and especially kids with dyslexia, the basic idea is that they just have trouble with that connection between letters and sounds and how that all fits together. And so that's a specific thing maybe to answer your question. Because they have trouble with that, then they have trouble in other areas. They may have trouble with fluency, or they may have trouble with comprehension. And so we also have ways that we can say, okay, this student's having trouble with these letters and sounds, but they're also having trouble with comprehending what they read, and so we're going to work on those areas. It just depends specifically on the student, but and we've done and when I say we, I'm talking about the Special Ed Cooperative and Dodge City Schools are starting to do more and more with assessing the needs of students, and give them some different types of assessments that will tell us what kinds of problems a student has. Some of the programs that I had on a slide, I didn't mention them as I was talking, but such as Alexia, will go in and in a way kind of diagnose some specific things that they're having trouble with and give them things to work on. It's a program that's on computer and that they can work through and work specifically. And so our teachers will use those kinds of things along with anything they do directly with the student themselves. But it just depends on what that student's needs are, and we just try to find those specific needs.
Thanks, John.
Okay, thank you.
Take that one. Yvonne is ill this evening, so if you put up on the screen the academic calendar. I also included, I believe, in your green folders tonight, a copy of the negotiated agreement dealing with the calendar committee and what its parameters for operation are. We'll go over some of that here real quick. If you would mind, just go ahead. Here's just a list of the folks that are represented on the calendar committee. Board of Education does have one representative on that group. Next. And these are the guidelines of parameters that the calendar committee operates under. They don't schedule in-service days and work days and all those kinds of things. Their parameters are very simple. 180 days of a teacher contract. They don't determine length of the student day or deviate from anything in the agreement. They try, when it's possible, to have school start the third full week in August and conclude prior to Memorial Day. It just depends on how the calendar falls. And then finally, upon a recommendation from the calendar committee and the vote, representing the vote of the staff and parents, ultimately it's the Board of Education's responsibility to approve the calendar. And we are, just to remind you, we are looking at the 17-18 school year, because we've already approved 16-17. Okay, next. Here are the members of the committee. We had school staff and parents, board members, and here's the three options they voted on. These options were presented. There were over a dozen options provided, I believe, to the calendar committee, and got it down to these three. And as you can see, the dark blue day in August is the first day of the contract. The dark blue or purple day at the end of May is the last day of the contract, and the red days in between are school holidays. Go on to the next one, please. Public Information Office conducts this process, and we had voting open from January 4th to the 12th. They sent out 3 reminders to all the staff and parents. The negotiated agreement asked for 10 parent representatives from each school to submit their preference to represent the votes of the parents. It was done online, and it was anonymous, and there were 680 votes, which is more than what we had last year, which is kind of nice. That's out of our 1,000 employees and 140 parents that could have voted. Calendar A and Calendar B were virtually the same, with about 24-25%, and then Calendar C got 51% of the vote. Calendar C set the beginning of the school year, beginning of the teacher contract, on a Wednesday. You've got this in your folder, in your materials as well. Traditionally, our school district has had 2 days at the beginning of the school year, 1 day for teacher in service and 1 day for teachers to work in their classroom. In looking at this calendar that was voted on by the staff, we saw that this potentially could be an issue. If we maintained the same 2 days at the beginning of the school year for teacher workday and staff development, it would actually have kids coming back to school on Friday only that week. Some places, some people think that might not be a bad thing. However, if we felt it important to be able to continue the 2 days prior to the start of school for staff. And then it also had the students, I don't know if you can see the December up there, but you can see it in your materials. What we have done in December, since the last school day or last teacher contract day in December is also the last day of the first semester. And by contract, that last day has to be a work day for teachers to prepare grades and materials for report cards. If we left it the way it is here, that last day would be on a Wednesday, so students would be in school Monday and Tuesday, teachers would work on Wednesday, and then everybody be out Thursday, Friday. Bounce this around among administrative staff and didn't have a real strong preference one way or the other, but this evening I'm bringing you an option for a modified option C calendar. that has one simple change. It has school starting for teachers, or the contract day would be on Thursday and Friday instead of Wednesday and Thursday. So the students really wouldn't start until first. I can't see that far. But by doing so, that cuts one day off the 180 required for the calendar. So my recommendation for making that 180th day would be just to push the Christmas vacation back one day, which would have the kids in school Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for teachers would be the work day end of the semester. We can probably make it work either way, but just for continuity and to keep things going the way they've typically been done with 2 days for staff before the school year starts with students, my recommendation is that you look at the modification to option C. Still starts one day later, still ends the same. Christmas, instead of being, I think, 16 days, 18 days, now is 17 days. Your discretion. I know, Tracy, you served on the calendar committee. I think you did, right, this year? And open to anything you have to offer or any questions that the board members may have.
Sitting in on the calendar committee, what do you think?
I guess, I don't know if KNEA's seen this change to what the vote was on. I think the big thing was people like the full 2 weeks off. That one day is going to be that big of a deal.
So, yeah, they've still got two weeks plus a day, 3 weekends and 2 weeks, right?
Battle worth fighting on either end.
Either. I don't
Still, we're ending at the same date, and that days add up the same. So. The 17-18 calendar. By date.
Second.
I have a motion by Tracy and a second by Tammy. All in favor?
Okay, the next thing is just to remind you of, I don't think we have anything on this one, do we, for Dodge City Night? Just remind you that Dodge City Night in Topeka is scheduled for Monday, March the 7th. It begins at, I believe, about 5:30 in the evening with dinner about 6 or 6:15. Board of Education members are invited to attend. If you would like to attend, we just need to, we've got some rooms reserved at the Capitol Plaza, which is also where the event will be held. We just need to get your reservations confirmed to Deb as soon as possible. So if we don't need the rooms, we can release them for someone else. But if you're able to go, but funds are budgeted annually for the board to participate in things like this. It would mean leave no later than lunchtime on Monday and come to Topeka. And it usually gets over about 8 or 8:30, and typically would spend the night and come back the next morning. And this time it would be important we do that because we have board meeting that night. Okay? So if you'd like to go, please get with Deb this evening or the next day or two at the latest, if you could, please. Okay? And that's all from Yolanda.
Madam President, Mr. Superintendent, members of the board, this evening we have Tom Montgomery with us to kind of review the status of the facility improvements. As you're aware, the district was successful in passing a bond, and the architects have been transversing this district many, many times and talking to a lot of folks. And I believe Mr. Montgomery is going to bring an update, and we hope that the result of this will be the Board of Education request to review and approve the updated scope of facility improvements as presented this evening by GLMV Architects tonight. I might mention there is a budget that has kind of been prepared to go with this, and I would say this is a budget, and Ryan or Tom, if I'm wrong in this, you all jump up and tell me, but while this is a budget at this point, it is not a guaranteed maximum price. We do have adequate resources from the bonds to take care of this project, as Tom is presenting it today. Again, all these things have not been bid, and that would be all subject to finally a guaranteed max price that I think we're hoping to get that done, Tom, maybe in April to bring back if we can keep moving forward with the project sometime in that period. Tom, I turn it over to you this evening. Is there anything I can? And also Ryan Rowley is here from instructions. I didn't mean to leave you out, Ryan. I just.
This evening, what we'd like to do is a follow-up or a continuance of our last meeting we had back in December. We went through the schematic design for all the improvements of all the schools. We asked for, are we okay with the direction we're going? And the board gave kind of acknowledgement that we can go forward with it. And I promised that time I would come back and very soon afterwards, after the first year, and share with you cost for the project. And tonight's very important for us because we're in what they call a design development phase, just getting into the front of that, which we're tuning the final design for the project before we go into construction documents. So what I'm going to do is kind of go over the projects just real briefly. Be happy to answer any questions you might have. It's essentially the same what we had before. There's been a few changes, and I'll point those out to you. But I do want to share with you kind of what we look at as a total construction cost estimate that was kind of put together by Ryan Rowley with Hutton Construction. And then I want to share with you what we call construction support cost, all the fees, furniture and equipment, all those things to make up a total construction and construction support cost budget for the project. So with that, I'm going to walk through the projects, and if you have any questions, just kind of chime in, but I want to share with you where we are today and point out some of the updates that we've had. And we'll start with the high school. The back. Oh. Okay. Did you do that or I do that? Okay. Just a repeat. I think you've seen this slide before. I like this slide because it shows you starting with the high school, the existing high school, and showing just real graphically where the improvements are. And as you know, basically the scope of it is a new academic wing, a 2-level academic wing with 28 plus teaching stations, a new CTE addition for welding and also building trades, a performing arts addition, and a physical education addition with locker rooms. As we look in the graphic plan, you can see the overall plan kind of gives you a further scale of the improvements with the academic wing to the north. The classrooms are all arranged, classroom to science rooms arranged along with what we call the makerspace. Each floor has one. And that's in the colored area up on the north. See that up there. And the CTE up in this area, we can see we have welding and also building trades. To come down, we have the performing arts, and then over to the left we have a 200 by 140 physical education facility and a fully equipped locker room facility along with it. You might remember before, when we very first started, we had about 100 by 140, so we essentially doubled the size of the phys ed facility. We think it works out very well, is more accommodating, I think, to the anticipated uses of that space. In addition to the project, we've had some realignment proposed of some interior spaces to help with the culinary arts. It's kind of a new program since the high school was built back around 2000, and so I think it's a very beneficial program, and I was fortunate in this scheme of things, in this process, we're able to make that work. One thing you'll always also see on all the projects, we have this little salmon area. We're going to have, this is a secured entry. This is a secured vestibule that we're going to be having in varying degrees at all the schools. This is one that visitors coming in, this is their stopping point. They can't go anywhere in the school beyond that point without being let in by people at the administration. And that's one where we have glass doors, like you normally would have at a school, for the visibility. But it's going to be the special intruder-resistant doors, which essentially you can shoot at the glass. The bullet may go through, but it will not shatter. So it'll help contain the person in place. So that's pretty much what we're seeing in all the schools and really a lot of facilities that way. This is a kind of a focus on the academic wing, and lower right is a kind of a cutaway. Shows you're a little closer on the layout. This is the lower level, and here we have the science. The upper level we have the science. The lower level also have sciences, and it's very much the same that we shared before. As you look at the CTE, this area is the welding, and we have the building trades. Then we see the connecting quarter link that connects all this together with the current CTE facility, and along with the existing plans site. This shows the phys ed facility and the locker rooms. You can see the locker room facility here. This would be the storm protected area for this side of the high school. As we go back, if I could just go back to this area in here would be the storm protected area. This in both floors for the academic wing. So it gives us 13,000 square feet of storm protected area. Should be plenty to accommodate the students as well as the teachers. The middle school. One change that was made on this one, I don't know if you might remember, but the makerspace up here on the end of this wing was off to the side, trying to work around the existing chillers that are up there. But further evaluation and analysis, it looked like it was better to relocate those chillers, since we're going to upgrade those anyway. And we worked out that the makerspace could be right on the end of that wing, which we think functionally and cost-wise, it seemed to make a lot of sense. The rest of the facility with the gymnasium, the locker rooms, this 2-level, 6th grade level facility works is very much the same as what we had before. Also looking at a cafeteria addition to the upsheet there. We have increased parking with this plan. Again, we were able to push the gymnasium further to the south and create much more parking to the north to complement the parking to the existing parking that's to the east there. One thing we're working with our civil engineers on, their traffic people is really readdressing, re-looking at the circulation in this space. The bus, pick up and drop off. Nice thing about this plan that with bringing the parking down and bringing the gym down, we're able to get another approach onto 6th Street, which you think will really help with the traffic flow in that area. This area right here this is the controlled vestibule access, entry secure for the middle school. We're going to, since our last meetings with the staff at the middle school, we're going to change that just a little bit and bring that out, since understanding further about the students in the morning and evening, how this auditorium is utilized. They really need both of those double doors. So we're going to relocate this slightly off so they can have full access to those doors but still keep the same concept. Also included is a remodel of the existing gym into wrestling and weight, and then also have the concessions located here. Overall, I think the plan works really good with the play fields. And the only big change here was just a relocation of the makerspace. Again, the same middle school showing, I might repeat, the makerspace areas where the storm protected area is on the one end of the school. The locker room facilities provide the other storm protected areas on the west end of the school. We do have a upper level, from the upper level of the 6th grade coming over to where the seating is at the gymnasium, so we can have a top load of that end on the upper level, and also at the lower level, of course, direct access on the ground level. So it gives us two ways to approach seating. We'll also have an elevator plan is located right there. But all in all, I think it works out very well, really, for not the easiest site in the world to work with. I think the geometries work out very well for the project. This is the plan of the 6th grade wing. This shows the classrooms around the periphery and our maker spaces in the center. I mean, this is pretty much repeats on both floors. They pretty much have the same concept with the maker space type spaces or other types of classrooms and classrooms around the periphery. So it gives quite a lot, some real quality space at the 6th grade level. And also up on this level, you can see we have a bank of toilets up there too, as well as we have new toilet facilities located right in here. So we have this project able to add quite a few toilet facilities, as well as at the end here, at the entry to the gym. So it helps make up, the middle school right now is a little bit deficient on toilets, and this project helped us bring that up to a much better level. That's the enlargement of the gym. Much like Comanche, the been to Comanche, the seating, the gym's the same. This plan right here is the cafeteria addition, and looking at extending out this addition here to help with drop-off of dishes into the dishwashing. Also in this plan, what we're looking at is from the, I might point this, to help with circulation from this area. As you know, the library is here, and any access to the gym or to the dining room off the kitchen, it has to come around this way. Right now, we're looking to put another quarter right through here. Going to modify the library, a little bit of the technology space, put a quarter right through there. So it gives us much more of a freedom of circulation in and around this. So we don't have a bottleneck, don't have the kids just jamming up against each other. They have a relief to kind of circulate around. So I think it creates an excellent opportunity to relieve some of the pressure of coming and going to lunch. Okay, here's the maker space, and we will have again, it's 2-level, and they have access to into the wing. I think programmatically it's work out, and space-wise, convenience be a whole lot better than where it was. So I think that was a real plus. Northwest, this plan essentially the same. To the south, we have the kindergarten, classrooms, special ed, new toilets. Upsheet, we have a new gymnasium, new toilets. The quarter, we're using that plus the toilets as a storm-protected area. We've had to expand the kitchen. The yellow shows the existing kitchen plan. The blue shows the expansion. Our kitchen consultant right now is working on layouts. It's just, the way it was just too cramped. We just couldn't get enough space to make it work for a full 3-section school. Also included is expansion of the offices. And then if you see right in here, this kind of a pink area, this is the secured vestibule. In this scheme, we're able to go from there, and they have to go into the office before they go into the rest of the school. And where we can do that on schools, that's what we'd like to do. But not all the geometries allowed us to do that. So, and with this plan, the current gym remains the same. That becomes the cafeteria, but the gym floor, everything remains as is. We don't really change anything in there.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that once more?
The existing gym, we at one time we showed an encroachment into it, but now the plan, we're keeping the same wall there that is currently. So the gym is used as a cafeteria now, becomes a cafeteria, but the stripe, the gym floor, everything stays as it is. We're not going to be changing that. It's kind of a second gym, even though it's not a full-size, high school court floor, but we're still remaining as it is. And it'll still be served by the stage. So, I mean, this takes on a lot of functions now. With the gym being separated out of there, it provides a lot of versatility for the students and for programs that go on there at the school. Also, the yellow for the south, the below sheet, we're expanding the teacher's workroom. Since the PE offices will be moving over here to where the gym would be, we're going to expand the space, and it's sorely needed. The teachers are pretty cramped in that space. This enlargement of that, same things. You can see we're remodeling. The yellow is remodeling for the offices, remodeling for the teacher's lounge, also for the kitchen. The blue is the new additions. This next sheet or slide is just kindergarten spaces, rooms, as well as a special ed. In this space, we have, you see the crosshatch area, we have the toilets and these corridors. On this side of the building, that becomes a storm protected area opportunity. So reinforce, again, where we can, both sides of the school. Next one is Sewell. For the entry, we're looking at remodeling a music room and added a principal's office, another office. The reception is going to be here. This is where people will be coming in to this area before they go into the school. So this will be your secure area right there. We have to modify this outside here for a sidewalk and also a little awning. But the people will be coming in through here before they go to the school. So that'd be the point of control. To the east, we have our classrooms and the addition. This level right in here, we have 2 toilets, and we have classrooms. I think it's 14 classrooms. The 2 larger ones up sheet are kindergarten rooms. They'll have their own toilet facilities. Same facility, same setup as we have at Ross Elementary. Down sheet, we have the first grade, and we have a multi-purpose area that could be divided into 2 classrooms, and we have the 4 classrooms in this area. Our storm protected area would be right in this area here, because the way the projects, I think, will work was that will be a grade level to this point. Right in here, the grade will be this all be the same floor elevation. At this point is when it drops to a 2-story. That's when the property really starts to drop off. So below here, it'd be not assigned area at this point, but it'd be the same geometry as this. That below this area will have opportunity for classrooms or uses in the future. We have not defined that yet. But this gives us a 4-section school at Sewell and the light. And so I think there's been a good project, and I think that's going to really be this addition will be a real benefit for short-term and long-term use of Sewell Elementary. Central. This particular plan, we're looking at 2 large additions. The one addition to the right is a gymnasium, kitchen, cafeteria. Also have the music, 2 music rooms with storage in between. Adjacent to those, we have men and women's toilets, staff toilets, a storage room, and then at this point, access that gets us up to the main level. We'll have we'll have stairs at this point because there's a second level. The stairs takes us down to this point. The cafeteria in this one is 30 inches above the gym floor. So it means that from this level, we'll have to ramp down to the gym floor to maintain that 30-inch difference. That gives us a natural stage, for that facility. The storm-protected area will be in the music rooms on this side. As you come back around this way, we have, at this level, we have 3 kindergarten rooms. This room would be the storm-protected area. We have an elevator located right here that would serve the school. At this, the offices end would be relocated to this area, the old gym. We're going to bring the library, which is located here, going to put it in this area. So it's kind of nice, kind of a nice library. This will be, Central will be a 3-section school. We have conference rooms, principal's office, counselor, nurse, reception, and a teacher's workroom. Again, we have a protected entry or secure entry. People come into this vestibule. It's secured. They can't go anywhere else unless they're let in by the receptionist. And so it's going to be buzzed in, or however we're going to work that. But this will be the secured entry, set up much like we've seen before, I mentioned before, but the intruder resistant doors and the like. We did the plan this, we looked at it this way. What this plan allows us to do, we can actually build, is the whole key to this project is try to keep Central in operation while we're doing, as you can see, quite a major expansion to it. And we looked at several different options, and this one worked out. We can actually build this addition here, and then when this is complete, they can move the kitchen, gym, all those functions over here and free this space up. Once this is done, we can tear the little kitchen down that's right here, and then build the kindergarten and build this two-level portion right here, the kindergarten and fifth grade above. So it allows us a logical sequence of how to keep, to positively build the project, build in a good quantity, get some economies to scale, at the same time not impact their operation. The last thing we go into, I would think, would be remodel this area for the offices. This shows a second floor plan. You know, this second level ties in with this second level. Here's a stair that takes us down to the lower level. We have one elevator here that takes us down, and that's Central. Lynn and Beeson, very much, or it'll be the same project for both. We have the secured entry right here at the vestibule. They'll be let in. We're going to expand the windows at this corner and allow the visibility and to be electronic control. One time, I think the last time we showed coming in here and remodeling this with circulation around, and it's just, the numbers just got just too crazy. It just got too high to try to do something like that. So we've kind of looked at this, reevaluated, actually creating a secure area here and also up here, which is, you'll see that's common, a lot of the schools that we're doing here. This addition is a music room. When we first started Lynn and Beeston, there were going to be one large multi-purpose room, but programmatically they really needed music. So we were able to work with the size of this addition we proposed. This becomes a storm-protected area, able to work in 2 music room storage and some staff toilets also with that. And so we think that works out very good for Lynn and also for Beeson. Next one is Miller. In this project, the scheme, what this reflects is the kitchen, cafeteria, gymnasium, and it's a high school size gymnasium, high school size floor gymnasium, and the stages. The cafeteria is 30 inches above the floor, providing a stage. We do have storage and staff toilets. The blue is the new addition. The remodel areas where the offices will occur, and also the music rooms, we put those back here. Teacher's workroom. We have PE storage and building storage. We have a special ed room here. And classrooms. Also, if you noticed here, in the plan before, we had a circumventional corridor around, but in further discussion, this secure entry seemed to fit the best for everybody. It allowed us some more office space on the side as we would need it, but keep the circulation through the school and not disrupt it. Up sheet, we have additional classrooms, remodel, the teacher, actually the toilets here, so we're going to add another bank of toilets, get more toilets for Miller. And so we have staff, student toilets and staff toilets here, as well as staff toilets here. One of the things we added was that this becomes a storm protected area, but one thing we added was for this area, we're going to reinforce this area, this connection here that takes us up to the cafeteria, make this a storm protected area for kindergarten and for some first grade. Other first grade come around this way, but it gives another storm protected area on this side of the building too. What generated this plan, at one time we looked at remodeling this kitchen, expanding it to feed the cafeteria in different geometry, but again the kitchen was just too small to work with. You can see the kitchen you have right here and the kitchen that we're being proposed. And this as this becoming a 4-section school. Next one is the next page, or slide to be Sunnyside. Again, looking at a secure entry vestibule located here, looking at a 3-classroom for kindergarten addition to the end with toilets, we have an office, etc. Not shown on this plan, but we have a nice circulation area for drop-off for kindergarten up in this area, kind of expands this parking a little bit. So I think that's a real positive for the circulation of this site. But this whole area here, this about 4,800 square feet, becomes a historic protected area for Sunnyside. And it, in this plan, it remains a 3-section school. Wheel Roads, primarily is a cafeteria addition and an expansion of the kitchen. Very much the same we talked about before. This is your storm protected area is the cafeteria. Where we have this, in this case, with the secured vestibule, secure entry, we're able to come into the office and come back into the rest of the building. We're able to do that here just because the geometry is that way. That's Wheel Roads. Comanche, the last time that we visited on the Comanche, we looked at the possibility of remodeling the offices, relocating the offices to here, kind of switching classrooms and offices. And the cost just wouldn't allow us, to do that. It got, for this building, with the plumbing and everything, it just really got pretty expensive. So, again, the secure entry, the vestibule, the same thing that we're carrying through all the schools. Ross Elementary, again, same thing, secured entry, secured vestibule. And this one, the difference here is that we are creating a door entry to the kindergarten area, because one of the issues they've had is people coming in, going right down the kindergarten wing. So we're going to prevent that like we have doors on these other schools. So they have anybody coming in here, they pretty much can't go anywhere except go into the office before they go anywhere else. Well, that's the overall plans. Any questions on the plans? Like I said, I was going to kind of breeze through those because we went through those in a little more detail, last time. But everything's much the same that we've been talking about. So I think come along real good on everything. Next slide you see will be your next sheet. This is the result, kind of a summary of the cost that Ryan and Hutton Construction put together. I'm going to kind of go over the whole thing with you, then might have Ryan come up and talk about cost. For our clarity and sanity, we kind of divide all these 10 different projects into 3 packages. Kind of equal size. So that's kind of why package 1, package 2, package 3. Package 1 has to do with Lynn Beeson Miller, Ross Sunnyside. Package 2, Dusty Middle School, Comanche, Northwest Sewell. Package 3 is the high school. For construction cost only, and this is building and site, you can see we have about roughly $18 million for package 1, about $27,696,000 for package 2, and about $28 million for package 3 was the high school, which, for construction, the construction and site cost, we're looking about $73,947,000. Next slides kind of broke out the soft cost or construction support cost, and those really include the FF&E, which is furniture, fixtures, and equipment, professional fees, reimbursable expenses, administrative costs, contingency, and the total for that package. So I'm not going to go through all these line items because that's there for your information, kind of how we arrived at the number. But if we went through each one, each package has a different total, and if we sum those up, those 3 totals, if you look at the FF&E, the fees, reimbursables, admin costs, contingency is $13,428,000. And with the construction support cost and the hard cost, what we call, we have $87,375,000. Pretty much where we see the project as it is today. And that's equipment, science equipment, that's furniture, bleachers in the gyms, everything. It does not include the bonds and interest and that thing, but all things that we pertain as architects and designers. Any questions? Next slides just kind of give you, for information, is just a breakout for all the different schools, kind of where that total came from. That's where all the different breakouts. And Ryan, I don't know if you had anything to address on that? Or?
Good evening. Yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about how we came up with these numbers, just briefly. It started out as kind of boxes on a piece of paper for the different buildings. So we started out that same place and kind of applied a dollars per square foot for our original budgets. And then towards November, December, we kind of got models built of each of the schools. What I mean by that is we assumed a foundation, assumed wall types, assumed finishes, and kind of modeled each school based on what we thought might go into those schools. About that time, we've also brought on some subcontract partners in electrical and mechanical, which generally equates to about a third of the cost of your building. So we thought it was important to get those under control and really understand those so we'd have some certainty in those areas. Between that and developing the plan to the point where you see it now, we feel like we've got a pretty good control budget, we'll call it. As Mr. Hammond pointed out, it's not a guaranteed maximum price. We still got to go to market with it and see what that does, but we feel like these numbers pretty accurately reflect where the design's at this point. So be happy to answer any specific questions about any of the numbers, but
something you shared with us is that these numbers still include a fairly substantial contingency.
Yes.
Until we get the bids in and know what we can come up with as the guaranteed maximum price. I mean, the contingency has been going down the more detail we have, but it still includes a fairly substantial contingency.
Yeah, we started out, a little bit over 10% contingency, and then as we've gotten more information from our, and gotten a little more reliability in the numbers, we dropped that down to reflect that. So.
I have a question. On the high school, that includes also like the locker room area and all that stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Tonight with our package, and what's nice thing about having the budget, at least defined to this point, it gives us as designers, the guides as we go forward. We'll be working with Ryan more closely, the more detail we get to make sure we stay within that budget. If this looks good, if this looks like we can go forward with, your last sheet in the packet I handed out shows some anticipated construction starts. Because everybody's been asking us, when's the dirt going to fly? And so it's not all going to be day one, okay? But we have to stagger these a little bit. But it looks like, if you look at that, it's going to be June, July, August. We're poised right now with our staff to go forward and get the documents done to help the construction manager get the project, finally priced and get moving on the project. It really depends tonight on your giving us the okay that things look good that we can go forward with.
Talk just a little bit about finance.
Every once in a while you win one, and that's been very seldom, but every once in a while you actually, as you're aware, I'm pretty conservative on budgeting, and John Haas, who we hired as our financial planner, was pretty conservative because, as you know, while we were putting the bonds out, we went through the marketing campaign on that and the information campaign. You just never know what interest rates are going to do. We got real lucky, and that's the only word. I called John it just because he's good. He said, no, Bill, we just got lucky. We actually marketed the bonds at almost exactly the right time. Literally, if we had done them 3 or 4 weeks later, the interest cost in the first year alone would have been another $280,000 in the bonds. So we basically got a premium for selling the bonds, which isn't unheard of, but it's really unusual. So because of that, I'm able to stand before you this evening and say, the preliminary budget that we have, we can take that out of the program or the construction budget or whatever you want to call it. They call it the project fund is the technical term for this. And we still have about 1% standing by in that in case we have something else we need to do. So we are okay on the budget on this at this point. Does that answer the, and if you want me to, I've got all the information here and we could spend another half hour going through all the particular, but I don't think you all want to do that. But if you do want to, I'd be happy to go through all that, how it all came out.
His 1% is in addition to the contingency built in,
Yes,
both sides, the
right,
construction and the FF&E and stuff.
right. So that's, we feel pretty good about that. Again, there's some things in this project, and I think you pointed out some of them. There's some things that were not part of the original project. We've expanded the PE facility at the high school quite a bit. We've added those locker facilities, which was not part of the original budget. So now, is there a possibility at some point if the numbers really come in, and I want to both commend both Tom and Ryan, because both firms have tried to look at ways to accomplish the program at the least dollars. And that's not that they're trying to cheapen the project, but they're trying to look at ways at accomplishing what they've been told we need. And it was kind of like that deal at the middle school where they moved that around. That's about a $500,000 savings. That one, the lines didn't cost us that much to draw, but if we'd built it the other way, it would have cost us $500,000 more. So I know they're going to continue to do that as they go through this project, and there may be some other savings, and we may come across some things that, hey, we need to do this, and there's going to be some costs. But at this point, that's kind of where we are.
What is the next step that our board will need to be involved in? Is it approving a guaranteed maximum price?
Yes.
Once we go out
Right.
for bids?
And what I'm anticipating, and Tom and you and Ryan tell me if I'm right, if the board approves this evening, basically you're happy with the scope, you're happy with the direction, then they're going to refine this project more. As they refine it more, Tom's going to keep feeding those drawings, that information into Hutton Construction. They can refine the project even more fully. There may be some savings at that point. There may not be. We just don't know at this point. But then they'll come back and say, okay, this is a project, and we will guarantee at that point we will build it for this amount of money. And hopefully, did I speak wrong in April? I thought somebody over there said, what, is April a good time probably for that, or is it pretty close, just kind of depends, or? Did you see that? We went from April to April, May, June. I saw that.
Way to nail it down.
I was trying to get it. I'm thinking positive. I'm thinking April. But in that point, and again, one of the good things, and I think we should also say, by bringing our partners on in electrical and mechanical, we've had a couple of good meetings with those folks. We think we're going to get better systems. We're looking at total cost of ownership and those things. Fair statement, I think, and we think we're going to get some value there. Your administrative team has a meeting with Victory Electric. There's some special rates. If we use certain kind of HVAC equipment, we think we can save some energy over the life of these buildings, and we're going to try to do everything we can, because we know it's just not first cost. It's what it's going to cost to operate the rest of the project. So there's another set of meetings that we're going to have. Victory charges this peak demand on every meter at this point, so we're going to look at that possibility. I mean, we're trying to look at all those things too, and that takes time, but we're working through it. Alan, did I answer the question? And
You just guaranteed maximum price is the next thing they're concerned about,
Yes,
right?
right.
I mean, as far as drawings,
they're going to go to work.
they're going to go to work and then
And-
have something that you can send out for bids. Is that correct?
And I would say, when you bring the drawings back, you're going to bring those back to us again, aren't you? Right. Okay, do you want to talk about that?
As always, on projects of this size, we always come back at the end of design development, and it's before we go to final construction documents. Usually by design development, we'll have pretty close, if not right on, where the guaranteed max is. I can't promise you every project will be the same design development time frame. But the high school will take a little longer than Lynn and Beeson, okay? But we like to group those projects, but the next time we get together, we'll be looking at design development, final that, and then we should have very close to a guaranteed max. And that, if that still looks good, then we're into final construction documents and
Bids.
Action items, so they're. Okay.
Do we need a motion, or do we need, Alan, we just needed a consensus?
No, it needs to be a motion to approve the updated scope of facilities improvements.
I would make that motion to whatever you said.
I second.
We have a motion by Jeff and a second by Tammy. All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
All right, Mr.
Any
Coleman.
couple things real quick is, according to Administrator Policy and Procedures Handbook and Board Policy, which I've included in your materials here. February is the month where administrator and exempt employee terms of employment are extended. Typically, in this district, if you're in your first 3 years of employment as a certified administrator, licensed administrator, you're on a one-year contract, and pending successful completion of that third year, you're offered a 2-year contract. We have one person this year who meets that criteria and is ready for a 2-year contract, and that's Amy Oliveris, the principal at Lynn Elementary, who previously served a couple of years as our assistant principal. The rest of these are attached, the rest of the recommendations are attached, pages 38 and 39. Recommend that the board approve the administrator and exempt employee terms of employment as recommended.
A second. Motion by Ryan and a second by Barbara. All in favor?
Okay, then the next part is, I know what you're really excited about. It's about 60 pages of board policy revisions. Don't have to take any action on them this evening, but you're going to see a significant number. Many of these changes are clerical, just cleanup. If you can follow my explanation on the second page, if you'll go ahead and go one more. We tried to do something in colors for you to make it simple.
We need it.
Yeah.
Well, I needed to keep myself organized too. The title bar of each policy, if it's in green, as an administrative team, we've looked at it, we don't have any problems with it whatsoever. In most cases, that was clerical or just, actually in one policy, I think they put in 2 commas. But because it is a change, it has to go through the approval process. Yellow barred titles indicate something we want you to be sure and take a look at. It reflects a more significant change. And then anything that's in black typeface is our current policy. Anything that's in red typeface indicates an addition or a change from KASB. And blue indicates our current policy that we recommend stay in the policy that maybe KASB took out with theirs. If that's clear as mud, you'll see it as you start reading through it. If you want to go ahead and flip, this first one is a wonderful example. You see the green at the top. That means we don't have a problem with it. The only thing they did was change the address, the United States Department of Education Office of Civil Rights. Since that's been a part of the policy, we have to go through the approval process. The next one you see is another good example. It just strikes out a couple words that didn't make significant changes at all in the content or the context for the policies. Go on to the next page, one more. This one, there's blue. They're actually recommending that this is a new policy that will replace 2 previous policies. We actually had 2 policies on teachers having conferences with students and teachers having conferences with parents. They just recommended we put it all together in one policy. So this one replaces 2 previous policies, and you'll see those deleted later on. On to the next page, just some more green ones. Got to tell you, the columns over on the right-hand side are the justification for why the changes needed to be made. It also includes KASB's recommendation to review this and adopt it. Some of them are required by law. Some of the changes are optional on the part of our board. Again, I remind you that the administrative cabinet's been through these several times, and we don't have any problems with the ones marked in green at all. You go ahead and just flip through a couple more, just for trying to find one we get down to that's in yellow. There is one there on JDDB reporting to law enforcement. There you go. KASB actually eliminated earlier, the policy we adopted from them earlier included the section that's in blue. In this policy recommendation, it wasn't included. So I called them and asked, and they said, oh, that's just, we really intended for you to keep that in there. We just didn't put it on our portion because there really weren't any changes in it. And to me, that was confusing because everything else they'd made changes on, even just single words. We recommend that we keep the portion that's in blue that's currently in our existing policy. there was a law passed a number of years ago that if students have excessive truancy issues or suspended or expelled, we have an obligation to, once we get parent permission, we have an obligation to report that information to law enforcement, and there can be consequences for a student's driver's license, for instance.
I mean, if you found a child with a weapon, you would have to get their parents' permission to call the
No,
police?
if it's a violation of the law, it's not a problem.
Okay.
It's just suspension or expulsion for disciplinary reasons, truancy, those kinds of things.
Alan, how do we define weapon? I mean,
It's very,
handguns, knives,
it's very
but is it
well defined in your policy.
screwdriver or how?
Anything that's used as a weapon, if the
Okay.
intent is there, then it is a weapon. But there are things that very definitely describe what a weapon is. If, for instance, a little pocket knife, well, is it a 3-inch blade or less? I don't remember, something to that effect, is not considered a weapon unless it's used with the intent of being a weapon. Okay. Say no knives whatsoever. You really can't suspend a student for 180 days for having a 2-inch pocket knife in his pocket. Things that you would typically do, unless it's used as a weapon. Anyway, the policies are there for your review. Nice bedtime reading. You get about 3 or 4 pages into the policies and you'll be sound asleep. But since policies are so critical to the operation of the school district, we wanted the board to be sure and understand and ask questions about any policies you have questions about. There's one over, you'll see it later on student organizations, where it gave the option for the board to say supervisors may be a part or shall be a part. And in checking with our high school, where most of our student clubs and organizations are, it's that we have always operated under the may be a part rather than shall be a part. So you to take a look at that, and if you have any questions, get back to us. Since there are a significant number here, we won't ask you to approve them all. It's our luncheon meeting, which will take place in 2 weeks. We'll wait and do it at the March meeting so you have a chance to look at it. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to give us a call. If it's curriculum, Judy or Glenn will take your call. If it's personnel related, Susan, or business and operations, Bill, and if you want to go through me on any of it, I'll give it my best shot. Okay? Okay. Any questions on the policies? And I'm so sorry to disappoint you this evening, but we will not need the executive session.
Somebody's not doing their job.
All right, we have Board of Education member district responsibilities. Park and Rec, Barbara?
Just a couple things. The water park is going ahead on schedule. Chilton Park segment of the walking trail is under construction now. And that's what I have to report on.
Tammy was gracious enough to send me notes since I was not at the last meeting. They're currently working on Kansas Early Head Start grant, the state pre-kindergarten grant, and the federal Head Start grant. We have an assessment call on Wednesday to discuss current programming and 5-year grant. Instructional team revised the school readiness goals and the quarterly assessment. They have new Head Start learning standards and need to align them with the Kansas early learning standards. There's a national class scores are out, and our program is doing very well in comparison. On February 18th, they'll be doing a school readiness STEM night with exploration plays from 5:30 to 7:30. Started transitions for next year and will open for outside applications after spring break. And student data is looking very good, and the students have made.
Ask her a question. What was the date again for the STEM?
February 18th from 5:30 to 7:30.
That opened for?
Special education,
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we met on January 19th, and there was a representative there from Southwest Plains Regional Service Center who distributed these flyers for a program tomorrow at the at that location. And one of the speakers is Shannon Rao. She's speaking along with the 2015 National Teacher of the Year, Shanna Peoples. and that's tomorrow, February 9th, at the Southwest Plains Conference Center from 8:30 to 3, and there is registration charge and all. I'm sure the district knows. And we also learned that there's a newly hired psychologist located in at Sewell Elementary. And we had a presentation by Angie Schaefer on her the manner in which she trains newly hired teachers for actually it's on IEPs. That was pretty much some of the things that occurred in that meeting that I wanted to point out.
Yeah, Alan had shared with me some things. If you've probably heard some rumblings about school consolidation, there was a bill brought to committee to take from 286 to 132 districts. That was probably dead on arrival. But there are two other things that will be considered by the House Education Committee. Bill 2457 would expand a program that allows tax credits for private school tuition. That is, and these two things are very important to us. And it is on the agenda, and they did have discussion on it. KASB opposed the bill, and then House Bill 2486, we've just been over our bond issue, but this bill would reduce state assistance to local districts on bond issues. And so that's probably going to gain some traction just as a budget cutting bill. And so that realignment, when I called Alan and talked to him, I said, that's about 10 years earlier than I thought people would start talking about it, because it will be it will be an issue at some point in time, but right now it's
So that didn't even get out of committee then?
No.
They even take a vote on it?
No, they didn't even allow discussion. And then the Appropriations Committee, the House Appropriations Committee, approved a state budget that rejected two of the governor's plans, and I think you need to know about these. Governor Brownback recommended what it calls a sweeping $50.6 million from the Children's Initiative Fund, which that fund is dedicated to children's program, and he wanted to just throw that into the general budget. And so, and he also wanted to place the children's programs and early education under the Kansas State Department of Education. That bill was supported by Randy Watson and the KASB, but the appropriation rejected both of those in saying that the programs were fine being operated the way they were. So there's a lot going on. Education is obviously a big ticket item in the state budget, and you're going to hear a lot of wild and wacky things. But there's a little bit of common sense being exhibited. So we appreciate that.
I thought I saw a KSN report. It was an erroneous report.
So far.
Yeah. It hasn't made it to any committee or appropriations or.
We don't know how they're going to hold
education.
true to continuing fewer revenues coming into the state and not do something. But as of my phone calls today and checking with folks that should be in the know, they said right now there are no plans for K-12 or higher ed to cut.
Okay, yeah, that report that I read was pretty matter of fact, like it was, okay.
Check the date on that report.
Well, and plus I saw it on Facebook, so but it was KSN.
Got it.
Oh, my goodness. That's funny.
Outlay, so I don't think you have anything. No. That, so we've got Brian to review district bills for the March. Announcements, February 12th, 2016. Applications for the vacancy on the Board of Education by 5 o'clock. Monday, February 22nd, Board of Education luncheon meeting at Dodge City Middle School at noon. Monday, March 7th, 2016, Dodge City Night in Topeka. Let Deb know as soon as possible if you're planning. Tuesday, March 8th, Board of Education meeting, 6 o'clock here in the Austin Boardroom. Are there any items for future board meetings or?
Just that on March 9th through the 12th, rural Kansas is going to descend upon Dodge City as both 1A state tournaments will be in town, one at the Civic Center and one at the United Wireless Arena. And if you don't have anything to do during those days, I think they need some volunteers. Pardon?
Big time. We
Yeah.
could use anybody that's not leaving town for spring break, or if you can change your plans and stay in town, they could use all the help. Contact out at the high school, contact the athletic.
Could bring as many as 10,000 people to Dodge. That we have.
Okay, I make a motion to adjourn.